What's going on, you guys? We are here for another episode of Real Estate Unscripted. I am your host, Matt Hornaday, and we're here with my business partner, David White. And we're going to get this one rocking and rolling for you guys. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, so on today's episode, what we want to talk about is we want to get into a conversation of fact versus opinion, right? With a lot of the headlines that are coming out right now, there's a ton of conversation where people are talking about the housing market's going to crash, we're in a recession, and how that's going to negatively impact the housing market. But a lot of this stuff is stuff that you'll see on the news, major headlines. They're supposed to be attention grabbers. That's why they're putting it out there. But what is the fact behind all of this, right? Yeah. And so are these people looking at the historical data and the current trends to really see what's going on? Or are they just assuming because of what happened in 2008 that it's going to happen now again in 2022, right? Yeah. And so one of the things that I really love is one of the statistics, and it's actually a really great company, Keeping Current Matters. They put out all this statistical data for realtors. So if you're a realtor, definitely a great opportunity to check out them and see some of the stats they put out. But one of the things that they put out recently was just talking about the past 6 recessions, right? And of the past 6 recessions, 4 of the 6 times the property values have actually increased, right? There's been 2 times where it went down. One, I believe, was in the early 90s, and it was less than 2%, right? That's minimal. And then, of course, we had 2008, which was almost 20%. Yeah. But we know that the housing market caused that whole recession to happen anyway.
Now, that's a really good point, just for your listeners. I feel like most people feel like the housing market and recession are synonymous, right? Everything is all doom and gloom. So that's a really good point because, to your point, in the early 90s, you had a 2%, and outside of the last 6, you just had that. And in 2008, where the housing market was the cause, for it. And all other points in the past have literally just, the economy and the housing market has still been able to hold strong. So that's a really good point.
Exactly.
And again, of course, this wouldn't be a topic if the news channels and outlets did actually do the statistical.
Do a little research.
Nobody would be able to click on it. We have a whole entire generation right now. Our demographic is just completely full of everyone, no matter, at this point, anybody that's capable of buying, right? From your 18-year-old who's making $1 million on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and to your 70-year-old, 2008, and from 2005, 2008, they all have some sense of a feeling of that, right? Whether you're staying at your parents or you had to move or, your parents are talking about it. It's a part of history that all the current demographics of buyers and sellers right now are very familiar with. So, of course, in the headlines, hey, let's just bring attention to that because it's going to grab attention to people on the masses. Yeah. But go ahead.
And one of the things that was interesting is I remember back in 2020, when COVID first hit and everybody was screaming doom and gloom then, right? Oh my gosh, this market's going to crash, we're in a recession, blah blah blah, which we ended up in a recession, right? There was no question about that, but the market took a major shift. And I have video content from back then where we were talking about hey, it's now is time to buy, not time to pull back. So I took the opportunity and I ended up buying a property over that time period, and it's been killing it as an Airbnb for me for the past 2 years, right? But what we ended up seeing in the numbers for 2020 is that home values appreciated roughly, and this is national numbers, right, was about 6%. In our local market, it went up even higher than that. Then we saw 2021 come and we saw appreciation levels increase 20 to a high of in the 30% range, right? And we're still seeing very strong trends, right? As we look over the year-over-year numbers for our market, we're seeing those numbers being around that 20 to 15%, somewhere in that range, depending on the specific month. And then last month, on a month-over-month number, the values increased by 11%, which is unheard of. That was insane. And so a lot of this is telling us that the market is still strong. And to go into additional details on that, if you look at some of the top analysts, right now, they're talking about home values for 2022 to 2023 still going up, right? Upwards of 11, 12% on a year-over-year basis there. So everything is showing us that yes, we may be in a recession,
Yeah.
but the market is still strong. We still have limited inventory. Although there's more coming in now, it's still not enough for us to shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market, right?
Yeah.
And so it's everything is still lining up that this is still going to be a situation where we're going to see a strong market continue.
You know what? Take a moment too, and just for like, you know, the newcomers, right? The people who, you know, are, you know, targeted by it's a hot market and home values are soaring X, Y, and Z, as though like this, you know, where we're currently at is like this outlier that was only gonna last for 6 to 9 months, but we're going year over year over year. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about transactions year over year. That's really important, right? I think that's the eye opener for people. They just assume like, you know, there's very, very low inventory, so like 5 houses are being sold annual, you know, on a monthly basis, 30-50% over, you know, the list price. Talk a little bit about that, because that's really important.
Yeah, so we saw in 2020 and 2021, obviously post-pandemic portion, like the early phase of COVID, right? Mm-hmm. We did see a little dip at the beginning of that, and then everything started to skyrocket. But overall, from that point in 2020 and 2021, we saw the unit volume drastically increase, right? And so when we're talking about unit volume, we're talking about total homes sold, right? And that was anywhere in our market, again, was anywhere from 5 to 10%, depending on the month. Yeah. And that was insane, right? That's part of the reason why we saw that demand start to come down. But it was kind of a two-pronged approach, right? Why we saw the inventory come down. The demand increased, right? And at the same time, we had people holding their properties longer than normal. Yep. So it used to be that the average time that somebody would stay in their home was about 5 years. Yeah. Then it creeped up to 7 years. Then it creeped up to 10 years during the pandemic, right? And so it was at a point where like people were just staying in their homes. And then as interest rates were starting to come down, a lot of people were refinancing and getting even better rates in that same home. So then it's like, why would I move?
I can make this a little better. I can freshen this bad boy up a little bit.
Right. And so it just, you know, so a lot of people ended up staying in their homes, which ended up bringing that inventory down even more. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, as inventory was coming onto the market, the homes were being sold just as quickly as it was hitting the market. So you would see total inventory increase, or total inventory hitting the market of X amount of units, and you'd see X amount of units also sold. So like it was almost a 1-for-1. Yeah. And so we were never able to continue to build on top of that inventory that was coming in, because everything was being sold so quickly.
Yep. If you have a busy week and you're like an active buyer, and you know, you look at your emails on Monday and you're like, oh, okay, here's the properties that are available that I'm most interested in. You have a busy week. On Friday, you pop open your emails and get ready to look at it. There's probably 50 to 75 properties that hit the market and sold between Tuesday and Thursday already. You know, you just look on Friday and it's still not much available. It came available, but then, you know, it left the market. And in one of our previous segments that we talked about 7 to 10 days in this market, you know, if you're on there longer than that, then we have to have a conversation of, are you overpriced? Are you trying to, you know, not let the market speak and just, you know, speak for the market and bring the price value up? That's very interesting. I'm glad you broke that down, because a lot of people just kind of really get caught up in, you know, feeling as though, you know, they don't want to enter the market. They end up staying currently renting, you know, and a mutual friend of ours, and we talked about it, you know, last segment, and you know, the person who's doing our videography as well, we honed in on everyone who's renting.
Watch out, we're coming for you.
Everyone who's renting. What I will say is just, you know, pay a lot of attention to when your lease is over. You know, make sure that you're also you know, having these conversations, you know, at least 3 to 4 months in advance. And if you're the lucky person who still has about 6 to 9 months left on your lease, you know, I would look into starting to save for your initial down payment. Yeah. You know, reach out to us so we can connect you with our lenders to talk about what programs that might work well for you. So that way, you know, instead of paying first, last, and security, and we talked about this on the last segment, you know, nowadays first, last, and security on a $3,000 a month rent is, you know, it's a down payment on a brand new home. So, you know, we're entering, and I think that's going to be completely new for this market as well, right? Rental rates started increasing just August of last year. So, you know, you still have this full year of, everyone who went to month now being locked in for a year, people who are locked in for a year, now that's getting, they're getting close to tapering off. So I think the market's going to actually, coming up around, next month, June, July, I feel like we're going to see, a small little uptick of renters, either aggressively trying to go and rent somewhere else or downsizing and pay the same where they're currently at, or really just hitting the market and trying to find a home that's something that's doable. And, we talked about last segment, but, we do have lenders that are ready that can cater to that. But also one thing that I wanted to circle back to when you were talking about the recession, we were talking about inventory over and over. And bringing new, what I want to talk about was the demographics from 2020 and 2021. Our personal demographics, for the most part, the buyers that were in state, local buyers, were buyers who, were maybe staying with the in-laws or, renting and month to month as long as they could until they saved enough to buy in the market. But then you also had a demographic that 99% of the rest of the demographic was all out of state buyers, right? And so when you look at it from that perspective, and when you were saying, on average, people stay in the home for 5 years, from 5 to 7, and then it started creeping up to some 7 to 10, because you had a lot of people that just weren't going anywhere, right? Everybody was coming in to buy homes, and people weren't buying homes in their own state because they just couldn't see past if I sell my home for this, what am I going to go and buy? And that's where, a professional realtor would have, building that trust in a relationship where a realtor would have been able to advise you, like, you have all of this equity. Here's what you can do with this equity. You can buy a better home, right? You're not swapping one for one. You're leveraging the equity you currently have, right? And I think that moves us along talking about trust a little bit, right? Building a good relationship with both sellers and buyers, and building trust, with all of our clients that we call friends.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so interesting too, because like, as we talk about like what has happened, right? We talked about in one of our previous episodes, we talked about what was going on in the rental market and just warning people to be on alert. A lot of people are already starting to see the rental rates increase. And if you're coming up on your lease now and you haven't gotten an increase yet, be prepared, right? It may be coming. And so like, the last thing you want is to be shocked by that number and, oh shoot, I have 60 days and now I have to figure out what I want to do. Like, it's a great time to even connect with a realtor in your local market, just to say, hey, I've got my lease expires on this date. I want to explore my options just so I can see, right? Because one of the big things to me, at least in terms of being a homeowner, is that your monthly payments don't change, right? Versus being a tenant, your monthly payments very rarely are going to come down, right? They're always going to go up. I don't know any landlord that's going to be like, hey, you know what? Today, I'm just feeling sorry about what's going on. We're going to drop your rent $500 a month. How does that sound?
Never.
I don't see that happening.
Nope.
And so like, one of the best ways, and we don't really get into personal finances in this segment, but like, one of the best ways of maintaining your finances is the place that you're going to stay. Can you keep that cost level, right? And when you're renting year after year after year, you can't, right? And people may be used to seeing that rental rate go up $100, $50, something like that. But now it's $1,000, $500, and that's a big chunk of change, man. Like, when you're planning on spending this much and it almost doubles,
Good point. Especially when you backed up a little bit and you were saying reach out to your realtor to start looking at properties. More importantly too is, when you're in that rental space and you're comfortable, you're renting, it's somebody else's property, you're busy with your 9 to 5, whatever you have going on, your hobbies, work-life balance. Things that you don't think about are like, how are your taxes looking? What does your credit really look like right now, right? What can you be approved for a loan? Things of that nature. So, my personal statistics are everyone that I've helped find a home in the last, at least in the last year and a half, and or everyone in my little circle, in my bubble, on average is about $300 to $500 of a monthly rental increase. That's a lot of money. And then when you think about that, maybe you're thinking and you're listening, you're like, hey, that's fine, I can absorb that. You're paying someone else $300 to $500 literally, what is that? Like, shoot, 500 times 10, that's 5,000, 55, you're $11,000 a year to someone else, as opposed to $11,000 on your own asset and your own property.
Right.
And if you're able to save that $500 on a monthly basis and you still locked in for another 6 months, start saving that $500, right? You know, at least give you a few $1,000s to help put on a down payment and, you know, to help strategize on, you know, coming up with a solid offer. That would be extremely important as well.
You know, and I think one of the things that I was just having a conversation with a client earlier this week that's transitioning from renting to ownership, right? And one of the questions that they had for me was like, oh, well, you know, like I don't want to buy in and then the price just or the value of my home drastically plummets. I was like, well, first, you're not going to see any drastic plummeting. He's talking about like a $200,000 reduction in the value of his home. I was like, I don't know what would cause that. That would be a significant, like there would be a major issue in the global economy at that point in time.
We have more pressing issues to think about if that's happening.
Right. And so like, I was like, I think you're going to be okay there. However, like, let's talk about that. Right. So you're currently renting and you feel this sense of comfort here because your monthly payments are whatever they are. Right. And you have this house, but you don't own it, right? So you're not necessarily concerned about the value up or down, whatever, but you own it. Or you can own your property, keep that rental rate flat, right? More often than not, all the data says that over time, and especially over the next 10 years, the value of the home is probably going to increase at some point in time, right? The statistical numbers typically say that the normal appreciation is about 3 to 5%. And so your value will go up, right? And then you're going to have this asset, right? That you get into number one, you get out of your rental. And maybe you stay there for a couple of years and then you transition to property number two, which is that step up property, right? Which you take the assets from property number one to help you buy property number two.
Absolutely.
Right? And then that's how you continue to progress. And that, oh man, we could go into a whole nother portion of this conversation.
No, I love it because, you know, another thing that you're identifying too is like kind of psychoanalyzing, you know, the buyers and sellers, right? I've been faced with that question or maybe that challenge a lot when buying a home, right? And heck, we still have buyers on our book now that are just kind of like, you know, if I buy it, you know, what if it drops by 10, 20 grand? And what I will say is that the motivation to buy a house, overwhelmingly, unless you're an investor, is to feel comfortable in a place on a monthly payment that you're comfortable, location, schools, whatever it may be, right? You're buying that home and you're comfortable with that monthly payment, you know, the amount of money you're spending on living in that particular home. And from personal experience in line with this, you know, I bought a property, I waited, you know, I watched what was happening in the early 2000s and I just watched it. It was just kind of like, it's coming, just wait for it, boom, it hits. Market hit the rock bottom. I waited 2 or 3 weeks. Yep, it's at rock bottom. All right, now it's starting to climb. I bought a home. Bought a home in 2009, right? And from 2009, I believe, maybe to 2011 or 12, I looked every once in a while, what is my home value worth, right? And it dropped 30,000, 20,000, 10, 15. But at the end of the day, how did that really matter, right? I planned on being in that home for, like to your point, at least 5 years, right? And then you're always gonna have, once you buy a home, you know, the goal is to be there at least 3 to 5 years. And you're gonna go through at least 1.5 economical cycles at that particular point. So don't let that prohibit you from going to find the home of your dreams and at, you know, on budget.
Exactly. You know? Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to keep paying rent. And you talk about you're concerned about something happening to your home, right? The value of your home, but you're just throwing away all this money in rent every single month and you don't get any of that back.
Yeah, and granted, the first few years on our mortgage, you know, a lot goes to interest, right? But you're constantly paying principal down at the same time, and you're just literally enjoying your home. You know, what 5 to 10 years looks like after that home ownership. It's not like going in and buying a stock where you're like, bought this stock. What is it looking like today? What is it looking like tomorrow, right? You just buy a home, live it, feel comfortable, right? And then, you know, if you're a forecaster and you're a planner, since you're planning so much, and if you're the personality that's focused on the price of your home dropping, right, then, you know, maybe you're a planner and you're looking into the future. If you know you're getting ready to sell in the next 2 or 3 years, that's when you give us a call and say, hey, here's where I'm currently at. What are you thinking? Hey, we might say sit tight this year. Next year is going to be a better year. Or, you know, we might be able to work something where you can rent that out,
Right.
get a return on your investment, use cash flow loan, buy another home. The main point is find something you're comfortable that's in line with your budget and you love it. And then, let us help guide you from there. Maybe we can start accumulating assets from that particular point.
And that's another key point too. Like, so when I bought my first house, we lived in that house for like 9 months.
Really?
Maybe. Yeah. In Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we had bought it, and it was funny because when
I thought you stayed there so much longer.
No. I lived in Minnesota for 5 years.
For some reason, because I seen the home. I seen when it had recently sold. And I remember, I think we knew each other when you were selling it, right?
When we sold,
there was like a carpet issue or something. Yeah, I remember that. For some reason, I thought that you owned that for so much longer.
So I owned it longer, yes. I only lived in it for 9 months.
Got it.
But what ended up happening was we bought the property, and I had friends that were saying, well, you guys aren't planning on staying here. Why are you going to buy a property? And again, my mentality was I wanted to get out of renting and I wanted to put my monthly payments towards something, right? That I would actually own. Exactly. And so my thought there was if we eventually move, which the plan was to move in the next couple of years or so, right? If we do eventually move, then we've got options, right? We could sell it or we could rent it. So we ended up moving a little bit faster than I planned, hence the reason why we were only there 9 months. But we immediately rented it out. And the rental rate covered our mortgage and gave us a little extra on the side, right? And so we held the property for a couple more years. And then we eventually sold it. We made money on selling it, right? And we were able to take that money and essentially like where it trickled down to was like me transitioning from my corporate world to real estate, and then ended up using those assets to acquire one of our first investment properties too. And so it's like little things like that. Again, only 9 months in a property. And was it my dream home? No. But it was my transition from getting out of being a renter into a homeowner, right? So I wanted 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, blah, 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 all of this stuff, right? I ended up with 2 bedrooms. It was just me and my wife. Like we didn't need all this additional space anyway. 2 bedrooms was still an extra room that we weren't going to sleep in, right? And so like, it's like the little things and just having these conversations with clients. It's like, hey guys, when you're moving from renting to ownership, let's think about how we get you out of your monthly rental payment and into a monthly mortgage payment, right? Numbers that still make sense and give you ownership of your property so that you can join in with everybody else that is building their wealth off of these type of assets, right? Which is real estate.
Yeah, just assets. Yeah, and then to what we open this segment with, that asset, even with the economic cycles, the 6 that happened in the past, it's more likely your asset's always going to hold strong. And if you hold strong through whatever economicals, we might have one coming up, it's 2022, you may have one, right? But if you own an asset, ride that wave. Next year, be a better year for you, right? But statistically, the price of, those economic cycles have not affected the housing market as much, right?
Exactly.
And so that's the big point that we want to drive home on this segment in this episode, right? Don't get brainwashed by the headlines. Speak to a professional realtor. Have them leverage their network to talk to you. Figure out what your financial portfolio is, right? And analyze the difference between renting and buying. And come up with a budget that you're comfortable with, and have your local realtor run a search for you, and see how they can be creative to help you, get into an asset, and then help you start doing 5 to 10 year plan, right? What are we gonna do with this asset in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Don't focus on, is this house going to be worth $10,000 less next year? If it is, what does that mean to you? What if it's worth $30,000 more next year? What does that even mean to you too, right? You're not ready to move, you just moved in. Like you got roots there. So, people kind of get caught up on that little minutia where once you move past that and you have home ownership, it's almost insignificant, right? But it's a huge roadblock to get you into home ownership and having an asset.
Massive roadblock. It's a mental roadblock, right? Yes. Not a fact-based roadblock. And so that's the difference. But yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for people to sit down and think. And the last thing that I want to touch on that is it's okay to have a conversation with your realtor before you're ready to buy.
Yep.
So many people reach out to us, whether they're past clients like our friends, or they're just naturally already our friends and never been a client of ours, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, like I'm thinking this, but I wasn't sure if I should reach out to you. Yes, ask me the questions.
Yeah.
Like I love helping you guys out and answering this
Absolutely.
and figuring out the best strategy for you. If buying isn't the best strategy for you, we'll tell you. Like there's no shame in our game or anything like that. Like 100% going to tell you the truth there. If buying is the best strategy for you, we will also have that conversation. Like I have a friend, so this is actually a really good example. I have a friend who he has a dirt cheap rental rate, dirt cheap. Like, and I've talked to him about buying before, and every time we talk about what he actually pays for his rent, and I'm just like, in like the location and everything that he's got, I'm just like, you just go ahead and you hold on to that rental rate, right? Like it doesn't make any sense, right? What he would be paying for a mortgage would be so much more than what he's paying for in his rent, that he can take that extra money that he's not paying towards a mortgage and put it towards something else, right? Now, if his landlord ever gets hip to what's going on in the market and does a massive price increase on him, we will have a conversation.
I agree.
But somehow, some way, he's been able to keep that rental rate well below fair market value, right, for that property.
Like,
and so I'm just like,
celebrate that win, man.
right?
In those situations, you open up another bank account, right? You go through the process, like you said, contact your professional realtor. You go through the process, see what a mortgage would be. Find a property you love. Go through the whole gamut, right? Well, hey, hypothetically, if I were to buy, right? Here's the property I love. It's X amount of dollars, right? How much would that mortgage be? Down payment X, Y, and Z. It would be this price, right? All right, I'm riding the wave of low rental, right? I'm gonna open up another bank account and take the difference between that dream home, my current rental, and put it in there. And then that will inevitably give you your down payment for whatever the next home is for you, whatever season of life you're in, whatever you're looking forward to. At least you'll be able to have that, as opposed to just kind of blindly ignoring where the market is at, and just paying your rent and then getting caught off guard. Because that's what our local economics, it's putting people in really bad spots right now, really bad spots. Also, there's a legislation that recently just came out where the people are asking the state of Florida to actually step in and try to give some type of regulation with the increase of rent right now. And I don't know in details, but I feel like this is the year for investors. The investors who've been renting or who bought homes and have been fixing them up, is there, like we said, having assets and being able to leverage them. So it's kind of like that, people are making money, with their assets, but I agree with, a small amount of rental increase, right? It just significantly has got out of control.
It went nuts.
Increase it $1.50. Maybe month to month increase it, or increase it quarterly. But the worst I've heard is, starting 3 months from now, my rent is $500 more a month. That's when you truly think about that, right? That's somebody's, brand new car payment with insurance, right? That's people's disposable funds, that's college funds, things of that nature. So be prepared, get ahead, and plan.
My concern, like, just to get into the deeper part of that legislation request, was like, if the rental rates keep on skyrocketing like that, what's that going to do to the people that can't afford to make those monthly payments, right? If the whole market is going up, then are they going to have to would a family of 5 have to decrease from a 4-bedroom house to a 3-bedroom house, or potentially a 2-bedroom house? And that's a lot of people in a smaller space, right? Or are they going to have to leave the state and go somewhere else where the monthly payments are significantly cheaper and try to find jobs out there? That would be crazy.
Florida's trying to respond to it. I will say that, they try to proactively get ahead of the minimum wage, right? They are trying to attract more tech companies, Goldman and Sachs and things like that that are coming down more so, creating headquarters in South Florida. As you and I well know, a decade ago, there's only thing in South Florida is just a lot of entrepreneurship, right? There's not a lot of headquarters, outside of using Florida for tourism, which is what brings in all the revenue to Florida. and oranges.
Yeah.
Outside of that, what do you really truly need Florida outside of the, comedic headlines from the Florida man?
100%.
Yeah, so Florida is trying to respond to that, in terms from an economic standpoint. And I would just be very curious because, again, get with a professional realtor that's actually analyzing both sides of it, right? Mm-hmm. Not just here's a house, you want to buy the house and let me tell you how to get the house, right? Mm-hmm. But, in line with today's inventory, right? That's in line with today's statistics, who's, focusing on everything from local school systems, local politics to statewide politics, right? And how it affects Florida. That's, a few value adds that we bring to our team and the partners on our particular team. So I would say just, reach out to us. We also have networks in several of other states as well, right? That we can connect you with professional realtors that are in your area that have a better idea of what, your local economics and statewide, and federal economics are. You really want to talk to that person to help you really have a turnkey process or planning, from a turnkey position standpoint. I think that's really important.
So because this is Real Estate Unscripted, I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit because you mentioned something that I was thinking about earlier this morning. And referrals so this is really important for agents that are out there. Our referrals, our out of state or out of area referrals has drastically increased this year. Right. We just helped another client that was was buying an investment property in Georgia, secure an agent to help him go and acquire that asset. And I would say in 3 days, it was boom, they reached out to us, said, hey, we're interested in buying a property in this state. Can you help me? Of course I can help you. I've got a network across the globe, so that is not an issue at all. We connected with the agent that would fit this client, brought those two together, and then the client goes out and sees properties within the next day or two, and then boom, he's already under contract. Literally less than a week, And it's another great opportunity for agents that are out there, right? Like we're maximizing our network across the globe to make sure that we're connecting our agents or our clients and friends that are looking to buy outside of our area to make sure that they're going to be protected and covered wherever they go. And the fact that they're coming to us and asking us those questions is really important. So like, it's a major thing for your agents out there to know, like, network with your SOI, your network, right? And make sure that they are aware that you have access to connect them with realtors across the globe.
It's really
important. Right? So that you can help them acquire whatever assets they need to acquire anywhere they go. And the best thing that you can do for them is you actually sit down and you vet that agent out to make sure that they're going to match with your client, right? Because if they're not going to be a match, then that's an issue, And
personality to personality.
Exactly.
It's on a professional level. It's so much more than I want to buy a house. This person will show you a house, right? We've all had that. We've all had that experience where you're going, and you're purchasing something, and the person who's representing that purchase, right? You feel like maybe they don't care about you, they don't know enough, and things of that nature. And then if you really know your client, you match them with somebody's personality that aligns with that in this situation. And since we are unscripted, I'm extremely jealous about that purchase that's in that area because that's a place that I vacation to a lot. And man, like our last vacation there was outstanding. It was what I loved about it most, and I'll spend only 15 seconds on it, is wooden cabins, like everything. It just looks like somebody cut down a tree, they sealed the tree, they painted the tree, and that was one part of that was your wall. Then the next, and they built your walls all throughout the whole cabin that way. And then two, protecting the deer in certain areas there. And so you go to drive to your wood cabin, your log cabin home, and you just gotta sit there and chill and wait for the deer to get out of the road. Like they're protected there, and they just walk, and they're in your backyard, and hummingbirds are at your back window. It was really, I love that area.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I considered going up there with him to go look at some of those properties because when he sent it over, I was like, man, this could be a great Airbnb opportunity.
The last time we did family road trips. The last time in 2017, 18, when we did family road trips, and you think you went to Atlanta or somewhere outside of it, that's where I went. That's where I was at.
And it's only well, we don't have to promote the property, but it's only an hour and a half, give or take, away from Atlanta. So quick airport, drive up there. It's yeah.
The learn from this is that we're familiar with the area. We know agents in the area, right? We line up our buyer with the agent, and we can recommend that area as well because of our experience with that. Again, having a full turnkey professional realtor that this is what they do for 60, 80 hours a week is really, really important. And having a network, and if you're an agent, make sure you reach out to your network from what they call feeder states.
Exactly. And another thing for agents, like, if you guys are, if you're in the market, obviously if you're a realtor, you're in the market, but the focal point for you with your network is that they come to you as the resource for everything that may touch their house, right? So I have a client that calls me literally for everything. Like, hey, do you have a pest control guy? Do you have a roofer? Do you have a plumber? Do you have a handyman? Like, everything on that list. And I'm like, yes, keep on asking me, because I got it all, right? And I've already vetted all these people out, but you guys want to be that expert in your field so that your network is coming to you, asking you for all of these resources, right? It's a way to really establish yourself in your community. So that's very, very important to do.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And one of the other things that I wanted to chat about before we wrap up for the day was, again, as a realtor, like, the other things that we can do to really help our clients win their deals. And so we may talk about this every single week, but it's very important, right? The biggest thing right now is that the buyers, they start submitting offers, and they're losing. Then they just get completely frustrated with the whole process. And they're just like, you know what, forget it, I'm out. I'll just stick to whatever. What was it, an extra $1,000? I'll just pay it, so then I don't have to deal with this. And it's just like, no, hold on. Let's figure out the best strategy for you, and let's execute so that we actually get you into a property. And I know I definitely want you to talk on that from what you've seen from your buyer standpoint. But there was one thing, like, a friend of mine, a past client, had actually responded on somebody else's post on like a Facebook community page or something like that. And the person that had made this original post, they were talking about their whole issues and everything that's been going on with them in the process of purchasing a home. And I mean, I literally sat down. I think I got on it like a day or two late. So there was already like 50 million realtors who were already like, I can help you, right? And that's not really where I was looking to go anyway. But there was also some realtors that were in there that, like, what I was looking for was like, who's going to give this person the facts and the details to really help them with the realtor that they're already working with or whoever they want to move forward with, but like help them out and understand what's going on in the market and how they can win. And there was a couple on there that actually did it, and I was really, really impressed by that.
Nice.
But this particular person they've already submitted, I think he said they submitted 5+ offers, and they get beat out every single time, right? And he's just like,
it's value of good coaching,
right?
Value of good coaching from a professional realtor that can help you out, right? And setting expectations. So just jumping in, the segue to that is, building trust and building a really good relationship with your buyer and understanding what season of life they're in, what their financial portfolio is, and also setting their expectation, right? If you're putting those, in that example, I have no idea who you're talking about, right? But let's just say you're talking about an $800,000 buyer who keeps putting in $800,000 offers on $800,000 homes, right? There's so much to say, and I'm sure in that post, somebody was like, come to me, because anybody wants a buyer who has money and that's ready to buy. We don't have that situation, right? Because we just really do a really good job at, building trust and setting that expectation on the front end. I recently have been in a situation where my buyer is purchasing a home, and now that seller needs to purchase a home as well, within a 30 or 45-day process.
And I've seen where, the seller's expectations in terms of what they're going to do with the funds from from the sale of their home and where they're going to go and purchase next. I've seen that expectation is very unreasonable. And so I've had the conversations with the realtor and with the actual seller myself, kind of like crossing that line, but also in a manner of trying to help. Hey, look, if you're thinking you're going to go get X, Y, and Z for this dollar amount, that's not what's going to happen. And so a lot of realtors don't want to have that conversation. They'd rather just spin their wheels with, let's keep putting those 5+ offers out, right? As opposed to having that hard conversation. Look, that home you're looking for, it looks like this, right? Here's what it looks like from a dollar standpoint. Here's what it looks like from the perspective of how much money you have to put come out of pocket, right? And I'd rather sit on the phone with someone for an hour or two or face to face over lunch and just have that hard conversation of like, we just have to get your parameters and your expectations in line and put properties in front of you that you can get, as opposed to the ones that, you know, you truly want. If you really want those, here's what it takes to actually get that. And I think once you go through, you know, that first phase and, you know, with a buyer and, you know, coach them appropriately, there's no way that you should be putting 5+ offers in, you know, that just sounds like someone who's out there that's just doesn't have a professional realtor representing them. Yeah, you see the headlines. Of course, properties go for 25, 30 above ask, right? I'm not denying that. However, we have strategic ways of meeting that, right? And staying in line with your current budget, right? But it starts with expectations. Are you going to get, you know, the $30 million mansion that's on the water with a helicopter pad on it? No, you're not. Absolutely not going to get that. Not in this particular market. But you are going to find something that's in line with your budget, that's in line with what season of life you're currently going through right now. And we're going to make that happen, you know, with a smile on our face, and we're going to provide that turnkey service. And I feel so bad when I see that. Like anytime, like we've had someone come to us like, thank God we met you guys because our realtor had us putting in so many offers and we just couldn't get anything. And then we came in, set expectations, and they're like, oh, I didn't know this. I didn't know I could do that. Oh, I didn't know I actually have more buying power if I look at things this way. Boom. Property done. And that's one thing I love about, you know, HWRE Group and, you know, all of our buyers and all of our partners right now. We don't have buyers just, you know, if a buyer is with us and they've been looking for a property more than 90 days, then that's because that buyer has been told, but that buyer is just in a position where they're comfortable with being in that position, right? But anybody who needs a home, who wants a home, you know, we make it happen.
Exactly.
Point blank.
Yeah. Good. I think that's actually a great way for us to wrap this one up, man. So thank you again for joining in for another episode of Real Estate Unscripted, and we will see you guys on the next one.